What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more punk rock, and we're back with some more Bad Religion, and we're back actually with a request. It's funny though, Ryan requested I react to Kyoto Now, and it's when I reacted to Henchman the other day, a couple days ago. I was just about to react to Kyoto Now, and then at the last second I changed it because I was like, wait, I want to react to something on an earlier album. So this was already near the top of the list, but shout out to Ryan for recommending it. And you know, as we continue to plunge forward into a highly uncertain future full of more extreme weather events, hotter temperatures overall, more climate refugees, places that will become unlivable, whether due to flooding or because of extreme temperatures. Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff ahead of us unless we drastically alter our behavior. And unfortunately, there's like stupidity in a number of respects when it comes to like energy production and the way that we continue burning fossil fuels. But again, like one of the other issues I mentioned in another video where I talked about this stuff is that, you know, ultimately if we are going to cut carbon emissions and still maintain, you know, access to electricity, you know, around the clock, which I realize for people in some places around the world, they don't get electricity all day long. But the reality is, nuclear energy will have to be part of it to some extent, and there are people who like insist that that not be part of it at all. So I think there's actually a lot of misunderstanding, like, you know, around. I'm not going to say across the spectrum because again, most of the people resisting like modifications in the way that we do business and produce energy and so on are on the farther right side of the spectrum. And you know, there's still people on that side of the spectrum who insist climate change, you know, driven by humans isn't real, and you know, oh, I have a snowball in my hand, therefore it doesn't exist. But no, this song is indeed about Kyoto Now, which I believe was a college like student-led movement. Maybe it's even still around, I'm not sure, but it refers to the Kyoto Protocol, which is a UN like sponsored climate like target for the governments whose nations emit the most carbon into the atmosphere, and I think the U.S. like never signed on to it. I don't think they're signed onto it currently, and obviously, you know, the Paris Agreement came later, which perhaps like, you know, tried to accomplish many of the same things. So I don't know the status of the Kyoto Protocol currently, but for a long time it was sort of the biggest and most you know, high-level attempt to begin reducing human-driven carbon emissions. And I believe it was, like I said, a sort of student, like university-led movement, and I believe one of the first chapters, if not the very first chapter, was at Cornell, which, if you didn't know, is where Greg Graffin got his PhD. And so, yeah, Cornell in Ithaca, New York, also, if you didn't know. But yeah, I believe Greg was sympathetic to what these students were trying to do, and the lyrics are about like, hey, we're all on the same planet together, we will all perish if we don't change our ways, and ultimately, oh, what is it, there's a part, well, we'll see if I get reminded of it near the end, but I remember there's another sort of layer to the way he's talking about this, but it's ultimately about the way that these, you know, petrol-driven policies and the like reluctance to even change in the slightest, like, you know, the private transportation vehicles and the, you know, the way they burn fuel or the way that we transport things and so on. But yeah, there's another layer that I feel like I'm blanking on. So we'll see what happens when we listen to it, and if there's something that keys me, if I, you know, one of the lines is like, oh wait, that's what I was trying to remember. But yeah, here we go. This is Kyoto Now on the album Process of Belief. Sorry, I should show not only both sides, but the disc as well. But yeah, this is Process of Belief, 2002, Kyoto Now.
It's a matter of passions, no, not the science fiction kind. It's all about ignorance and greed, and miracles for the blind. The media parading disjointed politics, founded on petrochemical plunder, and we're its hostages. If you stand reason, you're in the game.
I love that shift.
Pieces are the same, and you know what goes down, we all go down slow. The balance is precarious as anyone can tell. This world's going to hell. Don't want to lie.
wait till the end, but that was the line.
You might not think it matters now, but what if you were wrong? You might not think there's any wisdom in a fucked up punk rock song. But the way it is,
Oh, I know there's wisdom in punk rock songs, correct?
It's in the way we live our lives, exactly like the double edge of a purple million knife. And so when I see you always heavy on the day, it's never really what you earned, but what you threw away. And how much did you pay?
It's never what you owned, but what you threw away. You know, if we proverbially throw away the earth, we don't have any other options. Love that little guitar interlude. And I think it was two, right? Like I think there was like a solo and then like another solo overtook it. So I don't know. One of those presumably was Brett, newly back in the band. Song. But that line, we can't do nothing and expect time to, what is it, like heal it or like basically fix our problems. And I think it's a really important line. And, you know, there are multiple times in history, I'm thinking Thomas Jefferson's a great example. You know, he owned slaves. He was aware, if you read some of his writings, like Notes on the State of Virginia and so on, that slavery was a moral and social evil. But he had this sort of ultimately responsibility passing perspective, and it was that time would heal it. Eventually, it's going to have to go away because as time and, you know, ideas and civilization advances, eventually people are going to recognize that this is not good enough. But what does that mean? Well, that means that you're not willing to be that moment in time, that person in time. You're not willing, even on a personal level, to manumit your slaves until you die, which, if you didn't know, both he and George Washington did, meaning, like, kept their slaves in bondage right until their death and then released them or gave them freedom in his will, which I guess that's better than nothing, but it's also very telling and sort of, you know, on another level personally selfish. But again, Jefferson recognized that slavery was wrong, but didn't want to be one of the people to stand up and make it stop. And, you know, he might have cited all these practical concerns about, you know, the early fledgling United States and what that might have meant. Well, the reality is it's either, you know, a moral and social evil that you need to actively oppose, or you're complicit in it. So this idea that, like, yeah, maybe it is a problem that, you know, we're putting out these carbon emissions and whatever, but I have a personal vehicle, I have a, you know, a car, I gotta drive around, I gotta whatever. It's like, yeah, I get all that, but on some level, if you're not willing to modify your behavior, then you're doing the same thing. You're passing the responsibility to the next generation. You're refusing to be one of the people that started the shift, started the turn, started the modified behavior that could then maybe lead to new systems which are less carbon dependent and therefore less problematic for the future of our species and living creatures on it, or on the planet, I mean. So yeah, that line really did stand out to me, and it was the one that I was trying to remember. So yeah, basically it's a, you know, sort of explicit but also implicit in that it's just kind of like one or two lines, but it's basically speaking to this larger issue of responsibility and, you know, people's perceived roles in history, which is to say, you know, are you a passive observer or are you trying to do something about this? So I really do enjoy it. Let me know what you think of the song. Let me know if there's another one on Process of Belief you'd like me to react to. As I mentioned before, it will always be a really special album to me because it's when Mr. Brett came back and it just felt like, like the true Bad Religion lineup is back again. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's another request. Shout out to Ryan for making this request. As I said, I was pretty much about to react to it anyway, but when he said it was like, yes, and like obviously it's the time to do this one. So yeah, big ups to him, and let me know if there's anything else. Other than that, have a good day, have a good night. See you next time. Peace.